أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Welcome everybody with another lesson of متن المقدمات. I think this is lesson number 4. So over the past few weeks we've finished the مقدمات, all of the مقدمات, all of them, the 8. Just basically like a first pass kind of thing, like a quick brief explanation. Now we're gonna jump into each one of those in a little bit more detail as we talked about. This is a very, very important course because it's not only about the Muqaddimat, but it opens up a lot of other subjects and a lot of other guidance about other ulum, just to give you a little bit of background about a lot of things that you really need to bear in mind. Now, as we said, we'll be going through the Matn al-Muqaddimat of like the explanation of Imam al-Sanusi himself. So he wrote the Matn, the text, and then he explained it as well. So we'll be basically relying mostly on that. We're going to read it thoroughly, but we will also, as and when necessary, we'll jump to that other book that we started before, and we talked about it a little bit before. When there is like an added value or an added explanation that is going to serve our purpose at this stage. Now, I have these books in hard copies. Again, I think just for copywriting and whatever, we just have in soft copy in front of us just for the purpose of learning. But if you want to read these books, and you really need to consider buying them. Now, with Matn al-Muqaddimat, we will start by, this is the introduction of the Mu'allif, and Mu'allif in this case is Imam al-Sanusi. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. قال الشيخ الفقيه الإمام العالم الولي الصالح أبو عبد الله محمد بن يوسف السنوسي الحسني ورحمه الله ونفعنا به. Of course, whoever is saying this starting sentence here is not the Sanusi himself, not the Imam Sanusi himself. It's basically the scriber, or the somebody who's doing the copying, because he's doing it by hand. So before he starts what the Imam says, out of adab and etiquette, is basically giving like dua to the sheikh who did ta'lif, did like authored the book. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين وإمام المرسلين ورضي الله تعالى عن آله وصحبه أجمعين. So this is where we start, like the words of the Imam Sanusi himself. He's starting by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or doing salawat and taslimat upon the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the rest of the, and basically saying he is Imam Khatim al-Nabiyyin wa Imam al-Mursalin. He is the Imam of all other messengers, prophets for sure, including, and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do rida and be pleased with his al, and the Prophet al, and companions, Sahaba, all of them. وبعد فهذه كلمات قصدت بها شرح ما وضعته من المقدمات على سبيل الاختصار. So he's saying this is just a few words. I'm explaining briefly what I have wrote for like in the مقدمات text. ومن الله سبحانه أسأل التوفيق للحق والصواب. I seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guidance to the correct path, and so on and so forth. في الأقوال والأفعال فهو المولى الكريم القادر الذي يخلق ما يشاء ويختار. Basically praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his attributes and great attributes for sure, and highness and so on. All right, then basically he starts with the first مقدمة في الأحكام, verdicts, as we talked about before. And before going here or starting what the Imam Sanusi said here, then we just need to go back to that other book and talk a little bit about the Muqaddimah. So this is like a preliminary explanation or a preamble to the Muqaddimah as well. So this is basically the explanation of Imam al-Saraqsti, and he is explaining, and this is basically the customarily in explanation books, that the scholars who are doing explanation on the scholars' books will have a detailed explanation of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. All these kind of muqaddimah or introduction, or the start of the khutbah or the start of the book, they will talk about it in a little bit of or in more detail, or some detail. Like some talk about it more detail than others, but there will have to be something there. And just out of like trying to get blessed by it and so on, we will also explain just briefly the basmala and so on, this part of the muqaddimah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is what we call basmala. Now, B, Bismillah, what is the ba'? Like they talk a lot about the ba', and the ba' is one of the letter or ahruf, what we call harf in grammar, in Arabic grammar. Arabic grammar would have the type of words is either noun or a verb, or not noun or verb, which is what we call harf meaning letter. But it doesn't necessarily have to be just one letter. It could be a letter of two letters, like fi, for example. Okay, fi as a whole is called letter from a terminology point of view in Nahu. But it is constitute or it constitutes the letter fa and the letter ya, two letters, fi, fa, like from the alphabet, they are two letters from the alphabet perspective, but from the grammar perspective, it's one letter called fi, one harf, and it doesn't have a meaning by itself. Its meaning is given to it based on the context and what it is attached to. And that is true with the ba'. What does the ba' mean? There are a lot of meaning for the huruf. There is a great book well known called Mughni al-Labib by Ibn Hisham, for those who want like to expand on this topic and find the many meanings for each letter. So now the scholars will talk about Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What type of ba' is this? What does it mean? A lot of meanings that is meant by the ba'. I'll give you an example. The ayah, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, in the ayah of what you do when you do wudu. If you want to go to prayer, we need to make wudu. تغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم. Do مسح, not غسل, مسح. برؤوسكم. رؤوس, heads. B, what does ba mean? Now, Malikiyah took ba to mean تأكيد, confirming, affirming, which meaning the entire head. So they do the entire head. Shafi'iyah will take it for part. There is ba meaning partial ba, which like when it is added to something, it means some of. So meaning some of your head, not all of it, of your head. Hanafiya said it's lil-ilsaq أو المصاحبة, two different meanings again, and like a different meaning of the ba. But they all leads to the quarter of the head, or the nasiyah, part of the head, which is like quarter of the head. Okay, this may we expand a little bit more in when we talk about fiqh or something, but you can see here that the scholars' understanding of the ba' led them to have a different opinion about the hukm. What does it mean? How much of the head we do masah? All of it, or part of it, or a specific part? Excuse me. Or that part, is it like just a few hair, or is it quarter at least? Like Hanafiya said, at least quarter, because the nasiyah, the word nasiyah, meaning certain part of the head, and the head in the Arabs is divided into four parts. So nasiyah, or what you do that, when you put your hand on your head, this is going to be quarter of your head. Okay, clear? so far? So now that has nothing to do with Aqidah for sure, but I'm just giving you examples of how scholars look into each letter and how they explain everything. So first of all, they talk about the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. اقتداء بالكتاب العزيز. Basically following the Quran, that the Quran started with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, so they start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وامتثالا, and also in accordance to the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, كل أمر ذي بال لا يبدأ فيه ببسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فهو أبتر أو أجذم أو أقطع. Meaning anything that يعني important or significant matter that starts without saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, lacking the bless, and therefore it's like a cut, is not complete or something like that. ناقص وقليل البركة, basically lacking barakah, bless, and incomplete. Right, so this is like the starting by why he started with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. They will get into another discussion in the other book, or I think even here, why he didn't start with Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, because there is another hadith with Alhamd, not Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And actually the Hamd, others say it's even more sahih than, or has a higher level of authenticity than the one with Bismillah. But as he said here, he started with Bismillah following Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim because Al-Quran started with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay. Others will say it started with Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So, there's going to be a lot of debate and opinions about that. In any way, scholars will actually say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and will say also Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We'll combine both in their books to follow that custom and to seek Allah's blessing in their work. Now, the other thing that the Sheikh here talked about, the meaning of al-ism. Al-ism. You say bism, bi-ism, bi-ism. We talked about the ba, although the Sheikh didn't talk about it here, but he talked now about the ism. The ism مشتق من السمو وهو العلو. سمو, العلو, highness. Sama, like sama, actually the word of sama meaning high, something that is high. Okay, we call the sama, the skies, or the skies, we call it sama because it's high. But the meaning of the word sama originally is status, is something that has a highness, and something of a high status. Waqil, there's another opinion about where the ism means. So basically, al-ism, because of that, when something is high, it is clear, and that's why you use that word to refer to somebody, to make him clear, to distinguish him from others. When I call somebody Yahya, his name is Yahya. So basically, what does that mean? It means I'm distinguishing him from others. So I'm making him clear and appear. That's where it came from. The word ism, giving somebody an ism, a noun, or something he's known for. وقيل من الوسم وهو العلامة. وسم, another word meaning sign. So it could be either this or that. That's the word ism. Wallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is a proper noun for علم. علم means a proper noun. على الذات الواجب الوجود, that we call the necessary being, subhanahu wa ta'ala, the essence of the, refer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. المستحق, that who deserve جميع المحامد والكمالات, all praise and perfections. والرحمن, because we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So he talked about the ism, he talked about Allah, he talked about ar-Rahman now, which is basically al-Mun'im bi jala'il al-ni'am. Ar-Rahman meaning that who gives ni'am, blessing, and ni'am, and favors and so on, that are great, of a great magnitude. So when somebody gives a great magnitude of ni'am and favors and so on, that is ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahim, al-Mun'im bi daqa'iqiha, the specific things and the delicate things and so on. So this is ar-Rahim. So that's the difference between ar-Rahman and ar-Rahim. And one of the differences, again, we can elaborate a little bit or much more here, and we could even take an hour just talking about Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, even hours talking about Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, but we're just briefly. And then he also say, وَقُدِّمَ وقدم الله عليهما لأنه اسم ذات وهما اسم صفة. Why you say بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم? Why you didn't say بسم الرحمن الله الرحيم or بسم الرحمن الرحيم الله? Why did it start بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم? He's telling you when we start with Allah because Allah is a proper noun, is a noun of the essence, and Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim are adjectives. But that, the essence or the thing that you refer to, the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or whatever, even if it's like you are saying Muhammad Rasulullah, you start with Muhammad, right? That's like the grammatical, the default grammar way. وذات مقدمة في التعقل على الصفة. So basically the essence is like takes precedent over the adjectives in your mind. So first of all you imagine and you put your mind in your dhihn, in your mind, you understand the essence, and then you can attach adjective to it, not the other way around. So that's the default status if you are trying to understand something. So why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and why we like follow that example by putting Ar-Rahman before Ar-Rahim? Then the Sheikh is saying لأنه خاص, specific. Ar-Rahman is specific for who? Specific for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it's only said to Allah. And that's why other scholars will say Ar-Rahman is also another proper noun for Allah. Is a sifa, is ism that, not just an attribute, an ism of that. And that's why in the Quran, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ سُجُودُوا لِلرَّحْمَنِ قَالُوا وَمَا الرَّحْمَنِ. What is Rahman? He doesn't know what is that. It's like a new thing. It's not like a name or an adjective that has been used among them commonly. Others will say no, it was used. There's a lot of debate around it. But anyway, just brief background. However, and the Sheikh is continuing, however, Ar-Rahim khas, Rahim is basically can be talked about, can be attributed to anybody. You could say هذا رحيم صدق من سماك الرؤوف الرحيم. النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام رحيم بخلق الله. You could say the dad or the father has mercy in like Rahim upon his kids, for example. But you don't say Ar-Rahman. You don't say he is a Rahman upon his kids. It's not word, like nothing like that in Arabic. So Ar-Rahman is specific for Allah. Ar-Rahim is general. It could be referred to Allah, or could you refer to other creations or others who are creations. And therefore, Ar-Rahim Am, general, could be used more general than Ar-Rahman. And therefore, he put Ar-Rahman, Sheikh, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even when like Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, it's by default, it's the default status, the way of, like proper way is saying the Rahman first and then Ar-Rahim because of that. And then he's talking about these jumla meaning the sentence, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, could be khabariya or insha'iyya, as we talked about the difference between khabar and insha and so on. And you know, that's a bit of a linguistic and Arabic thing which we don't have to go to. And then again, if you like Sheikh Jamal Farouk Daqaq here is saying like explanation about Jumla Khabariya and not, which is again we say we don't need, like if you consider it a Jumla Khabariya, it will have a meaning, would give you aspect of the meaning, and if you consider it or understand it as Insha'iyya, it will have another aspect, and what actually is meant, both of them are applicable. That's basically what we want to get to. Anyway, then he's talking about An-Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam. And this is very important. I want you to like focus a lot here and basically pay a lot of attention. ولما كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم هو الواسطة بين الله تعالى وبين عباده. Because what we say, he said that the Sheikh, the Imam al-Sanusi, in his book, he said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim was salatu wassalam, and then he went to doing salawat. So why do we need to do that? Why the Sheikh did that? He's saying because the Prophet, peace be upon him, is the intermediary or the intermediate between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his servants. And this is very important because you hear a lot of people say there are no intermediates between us and Allah. Yeah, that's in some aspects, but in other aspects, no. In aspect of you talking to Allah, you talk to Allah directly. You don't need to go to a priest or anything to seek forgiveness. You seek forgiveness from Allah directly. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks to you, when He orders you, He does not order you directly. It came through the Prophet. Even in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, it's basically the Prophet conveyed the message. So the Prophet is the intermediary between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from that aspect. This is very important to note. And we may elaborate on that more. I mean, we could talk hours and hours about that. Anyway, وَالنِّعَمُ الْوَاصِلَةُ, just so that when you hear some of those like people who don't fully understand and say, no, there is no, like the Prophet just role is done, there is no role of the Prophet between us and Allah or anything like that. You understand these people don't know what they're talking about. And therefore it's important, like this sentence from the Sheikh here, Saraqusti is very important to just highlight that meaning in your mind now. وَالنِّعَمُ الْوَاصِلَةُ مِنَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى إِلَيْهِمْ وَأَعْظَمُهَا الْهِدَايَةُ لِتَوْحِيدِهِ. The most glorified favor and most like the best of the best favors of Allah and ni'am and blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that reached His servants is guidance to Tawheed and guidance to recognize and acknowledge His Lordship subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to believe in them and in angels and the books and the other prophets and so on. And all that was delivered to us through the Prophet, peace be upon him. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, favor is unimaginable. Okay? That's why after the Shaykh al-Sanusi praised Bismillah, Allah and started by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, he followed by saying Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. So he followed by the Salah. Okay? Right. And then he talks about what is the Salah. Salat, again, there's a lot of talks about that. Just briefly, he is saying as-salatu min Allah rahmah, mercy, maqruna, combined with glorifying and ta'zim wa takrim and honoring the Prophet, peace be upon him, and levering his status. وَمِنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, from angels, it's istighfar, forgiveness. ومن غيرهما تضرع ودعاء. Anybody else, when you say salah, or I do pray, I pray to Allah, you're basically doing dua and seeking Allah forgiveness, seeking Allah and so on. So basically when you say salah ala nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, you are basically asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase His mercy and increase the status and keep lifting and elevating the Prophet's status, peace be upon him, or like continuously to the end of time. Okay. Not sure if there's something else I wanted to say here. Yeah, and then he talks about after that, the Imam Sanusi in his like introduction, he says Alhamdulillah. So he's talking about the Hamd. Right, and there's again a nice like a nice difference between Hamd and Shukr. Okay, praising and being thankful or gratitude, showing gratitude. So he's telling you that Alhamd, فالحمد لغة الثناء بالجميل على المحمود بجميل صفاته. Praising something good and beautiful and like for something, for a positive thing, that whoever you are praising have that great attribute and good attribute and beautiful attribute and so on. Whether that was from Babul Ihsani, Ihsan, like why is it like that? Ihsan, like favoring, somebody giving you favor. Ihsan, yuhsin ilayk, doing something good for you. Okay. or min bab al-kamal, kamal like perfect in himself. So the good attribute that you could praise could have could extend to deliver something good to you, and this meaning it is from bab al-ihsan. Or it could be something that is like perfection in itself, and then it doesn't extend to you to give you a blessing or a favor or anything like that, and therefore it's not from bab al-ihsan, it's what we call from bab al-kamal, from the section or the type of perfection, right? Which is like, for example, here the Sheikh saying, yeah, like, for example, if the attribute that you are praising, or you are praising somebody or someone for certain attribute, meaning, for example, karam, generosity, that is from bab al-ihsan, because that his karam, his generosity, extends to you. You are praising somebody for being knowledgeable, because that knowledge extends to others, so it's from bab al-ihsan. However, if that attribute or that action or that thing does not extend its perfection in itself, like doing salah wa sawm, if somebody is praying, having a lot of prayer or doing a lot of sawm, and then you are praising him for that, you are not praising him for something that extends to you, you are praising him for something that is perfection in itself. Is basically from bab al-kamal, as we said. So similarly with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you could praise Allah for the great qualities and attributes, whether that was from ihsan, he is like those attributes extends to you with blessing and favors, or from a perfection point of view. Okay, so that's a hamd. Shukr, gratitude, being thankful and gratitude, is an action in linguistically point of view, is an action that indicates glorification of the whoever gives you the blessing or the favor, because he gave you that, because of the كونه منعما, because of him being the person, if you're talking about general like persons or people, that extend or give you that ni'mah. That's from a lugha point of view. From istilah terminology, هو الثناء باللسان وبغيره. So basically you could say it's praising. So from lugha it's an action, but from terminology, as it's used in like normal terminology, praising by tongue and by anything else. Like you can also do it by action. From al-qalb, all arkan like meaning your body, and you could basically have it in your heart, or in your or doing something by action. Why do you do that? You do it because of something that whoever you are being gratitude to has delivered to you, like a favor delivered to you. So shukr, in that sense, it could be by tongue or by anything, by any other way, to show gratitude for something that you received. Alhamd is basically tongue, thana' bil jamil, and it could be whether something that is extended to you or not, right? So basically that's the difference between hamd wa shukr. And because of that definition, because of this definition of each, then you would notice that there is overlap between both of them, what we call umum wa khusus wajhi, which is something we could elaborate on more, but there's basically an overlap. So there is an area where both of them are applicable, but there are other areas or other situations where hamd is different than shukr. Why all that is important? Because when you are ordered to do shukr, or you want to be shakur, what do? You do just hamd, or you do something else? For example, it's very important to know these differences in your mind. So Sheikh here is saying, Sheikh Gamal, who is doing like the annotations at the margin here. وينفرد كل منهما في جهة. فمثلا الثناء باللسان في مقابله إحسان. If you do praising by tongue في مقابل إحسان, for example, if you say Allah Kareem, now you are praising with your tongue, saying Allah Kareem. And it is for something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivered you. His karam, His generosity reflects in you by blessing and ni'am and favors and everything. So basically, this saying is you doing praise and also doing shukr. So it's both. Okay? Because it's with tongue and it is for something that extends to you. However, if you thought only by your heart, if you just by your heart, you acknowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mun'im. Mun'im meaning like has favors upon you. Or if you do that, do something by your body to reflect that without saying by your tongue. So let's say, for example, you prayed as a recognition and feeling gratitude and feeling recognition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala extends ni'am to you and blessing. And that was because of that ni'am that you've been blessed by. In this case, this is shukr, gratitude, not praising. Okay? And in the same way, if you praise or if you say something by your tongue, not for a ni'mah, not in like because of a favor, in this case, that's hamd, not shukr. Okay? As if, for example, you say Allah Qadim, now that's a praise. Allah Wahid, that's a praise. You are praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for being the one and only, for being Qadim, beginning this. You are, doing hamd to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or praise. Okay? Very delicate and very detailed and advanced to some extent topic. But I think it's crucial that you understand this type of things. And all that, I want you to know that when scholars do explanation on other scholar books, they go to a great level of detail. They explain the letter, why this, why is that. They raise a lot of questions that will never come to your mind. This is al-ilm. Okay? This is the importance of being like a student of ilm. Not just taking things at a very high level, at face value, and being shallow in your ilm. That is not the way to go. All right. Then the Shaykh here, in the explanation, again, we're still in the Saraqusti explanation. Muqaddimah. He's saying Muqaddimah. Now, he's saying he's giving some benefits of that. The first one is saying the reasons or causes of acquiring knowledge in the way of al-Ash'ari or Imam al-Ash'ari. Three things. How do you acquire knowledge? You acquire knowledge by your senses, the five senses, al-Zahira al-Salima, the external, which is like the five senses, nothing like intrinsically, or like your taste, your seeing, your hearing, the five hawas, what we call senses, five senses. Salima, it has to be correct, proper and healthy, basically, which is sama, basar, sham, wa dhawq, wa lams, touching, tasting, sniffing, or like smelling, seeing and hearing. So this is the first one. Number two, al-khabar al-sadiq, al-mutawatir, the account, historical account, or certain account, a statement that you either heard directly or has been told to you through tawatur. We talked about tawatur and ahad before, so we refer to these previous lessons, and so we said tawatur leads to acquiring knowledge, as we said, right? So الخبر الصادق متواترا كان أو مسموعا من الرسول المؤيد بالمعجزة. من الرسول here doesn't mean necessarily or only the Prophet, peace be upon him, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but all the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who came with miracles. So when somebody comes, when one of those messengers came to his people and was supported by a miracle and gave them orders or accounts, told them certain accounts or statements, those statements leads to acquiring a definite knowledge and proper knowledge. Okay, so the first one was al-hawas, second one is which is like the senses, second one is khabar al-sadiq, wal-aql is mind or intellect or logic, rationale, all that kind of things. And it's also another reason of ilm. Like, for example, you could start solving a mathematical equation and reach a conclusion, reach a ilm of what, like the value of x in an equation through following logically the equation. Nobody told you the value of x, and you did not sense the value of x. You didn't touch the equation and then, oh, the value of x is so and so. You didn't just look at it and knew right away what was the value of x. You had to go through the logical way, logical interpretation, logical like solution in order to reach that. So that's basically, how did you go that or through that process? It's mind, it's intellect, logic. وأما الإلهام meaning like something that you feel or you understand by your mind without going, not your mind, something that you feel like you understand or you know, we call ilham. المفسر بإلقاء معنى في القلب, like a meaning, certain meaning is being thrown into your heart. بطريق الفيض يثلو له صار, something like came to your heart and you felt good about it, and you understand, oh, you know what, maybe you had a meaning in your heart, came right away or immediately, suddenly to your heart, explaining something to you, or about something that will happen in Jannah, or just basically imagine something and you know, something like that. So in this case, whether you became like you're happy with it and you are confident in it or whatever, this is not reason for knowledge. عند أهل الحق. So basically people like أهل السنة وأهل الحق, we do not acknowledge or we don't accept that as knowledge. Meaning, if you saw something, let's say you saw something in your dreams, well, that doesn't, that benefits you, could benefit you, but it doesn't reflect into a Sharia order or into a knowledge that you need to work upon or do or order others to do, for example. So, for example, a great sheikh, imagine any great sheikh or a great man or scholar saw the Prophet ordering him to do something. Is that a Sharia order? No. The Prophet told him something. Is that knowledge? No. He could be happy with it. He could act upon it for himself if it is not against Sharia, for sure. But he doesn't go out and say, you know what, the Prophet told me so and so, you need to do this, you need to have to do that, and so on. No, that's not unacceptable. عند أهل الحق, and أهل السنة وأهل الحق, the people of al-haq. And here the Sheikh Kamal Farouk al-Daqqaq adds here an important annotation saying, Imam al-Qushayri said in الرسالة القشيرية, الخطاب, the speech or the address, الوارد على الضمير, on your conscious, that comes to your conscious, could be by throwing of an angel. Angel would tell you something, or will you suddenly feel something in your heart, or a meaning in your heart or something. وقد يكون بإلقاء الشيطان, could be from Satan. وقد يكون من حديث النفس, just yourself, you are talking to yourself and, you know, coming to yourself in a certain way, and so on. وقد يكون من قبل الحق, من الله سبحانه وتعالى. فإذا كان من قبل الملك يسمى إلهاما. If it is from angel, it's called إلهام. وإن كان من قبل الشيطان فالوسواس, the evil or devil's whispering. وإذا كان من قبل النفس فالهاجس, we call it haggis. I don't know what's going to be translated in English, to be honest, but it's basically yourself talking to yourself. وإذا كان من قبل الله, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فهو خاطر حق, it is حق, truth, address, like important, not important, it's a truth. وجملة ذلك من قبيل الكلام, all that is a speech. ويعلم صدقه بموافقة العلم. ولذا قالوا كل خاطر لا يشهد له ظاهر فهو باطل. Meaning, you have to put it to the Sharia test. If it is against the Sharia, then you throw it away. It is incorrect. It's from shaitan or from yourself. All right. And we have a lot of examples here. I think there was a question in the group about Imam al-Razi saying his father explaining something to him, and I replied to that with a detail about it happens all the time to a lot of scholars, and even normal people may see something like that. And I give even the example of Sheikh al-Sha'rawi, so refer to that. Has anybody not read that? The group? Anyway, so perhaps it's in the group, so I'm no point of repeating that. Okay, so the second important point here is في الكلام على شيء من فضل العلم وفضل أهله. The great status of people of ilm. And he basically lists some ahadith how people of ilm are elevated many daragat, many levels upon normal and non like knowledgeable or people who do not seek knowledge. And the Prophet peace be upon him hadith al-ulama warathatul anbiya, like the scholars and people of knowledge inherited something from prophets, and so on and so forth. So we just say that seeking or hoping, being hopeful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will include us, all of us, in that great status, although we don't deserve it, and although we cannot even amount to a hair in any of the true scholars' bodies. Right. And then the point number 3 in the preamble of the Imam Saraqusri, في اسم هذه العقيدة فاسمها المقدمات. He is talking about the word of this book that the Imam Sanusi is talking about or authored or wrote. It's called Muqadimat. And then Muqaddimah meaning a group of ilm that precedes you going through that ilm to learn it. So it is a group of the ilm that precedes the ilm itself that you are going to be studying. And he basically listed the 8 مقدمة that we talked about before. الأولى مقدمة الأحكام، الثانية مقدمة المذاهب، والثالثة أنواع الشرك، أصول الكفر والبدع، والخامسة مقدمة الموجودات، الممكنات، الصفات الأزلية، الأمانة في حق الرسل. We talked about all these like briefly before. So basically he's just listing them. And then he gives you another benefit. If you ask yourself why, and I think even that was in the group, somebody asked why we are talking about Muqaddimah al-Ahkam, which is about Usul Fiqh in this book of Aqidah. And basically the Sheikh here is saying he's not saying why he included it. He's saying why not just including it, what putting it the start, the very beginning of the Muqaddimat, why Imam al-Sanusi put it in his like number 1. And the Sheikh here is saying because this Muqaddimah, you use it, you need to know this because al-ahkam and understanding al-ahkam and how ahkam is made and so on, and verdicts and so on, this is something that you use in order for you to know something what others. So basically it's necessary. Without it you don't really fully understand all the other muqaddimat and ahkam, because you need to understand the ahkam first, because ahkam is basically meaning, as we're going to talk about, it's doing asserting relations and so on between certain statement which gives you knowledge. So how can you go to the second muqaddimah or the other muqaddimat and be knowledgeable about it while you don't really even understand how you get knowledge and what is meant by ahkam and verdicts and so on. So anyway, this is just what we wanted to talk about from the preamble of that book. مواهب الربانية في شرح المقدمات السنوسية. And then we jump back to Imam al-Sanusi book himself. Okay, now we're going to talk about المقدمة الأولى, الأحكام. Any questions before we go in here? So all what we talked about before was basically until now from the start of the lesson was about the preamble and the explanation of the preamble and the intro by the Imam al-Saraqusli. Now we're going to talk about or explain the first Muqaddimah from the Imam al-Sanusi book. Any question? Any questions? Are you following? Fine? All clear? Are you even still here? All right, okay, so all clear. Good. All right, so we'll start inshallah with Muqaddimah al-Ula. Now, al-Muqaddimah al-Ula, the first Muqaddimah. And I'm saying like Muqaddimah because it became now like a proper noun to what we're talking about. It's not just, it doesn't just mean introduction. It's just a part of, or a point, a certain element of ilm that the Sheikh here, Sanusi, is talking about. And as, again, it's in Al-Ahkam. تعريف الحكم وانقسام العلم إلى تصور وتصديق. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. تعريف الحكم. What does حكم mean? Definition of حكم. وانقسام العلم, العلم, knowledge, division to تصور وتصديق. What we call تصور وتصديق, which is something you study in traditional logic, like at great level of detail, and we're going to explain it to some level here. Now you will note that in this book here, this sentence here, or that title, is between brackets. See this brackets, which meaning Imam al-Sanusi himself did not write it. It's from like added by the muhaqqiq of the book, those who like went through the manuscripts and combined it from the manuscripts and formulated it in a way that you could read and so on. Added those nice, borders and all that kind of stuff. All right. Now, Imam al-Sanusi say al-hukm. What is hukm? What we like translated loosely as judgment or verdict. In definition, he's saying it's إثبات أمر أو نفيه, asserting something or establishing something, or denying it or negating or denying that. يعني, meaning أن من أدرك أمرا من الأمور, anybody who will realize something that realization could be either imagination of the meaning only, just basically merely imagining the meaning, understanding or comprehending or imagining the meaning in the mind, or it could be through establishing a relation or establishing that thing, affirming it basically, or denying it. ثبوته أو نفيه. So this idrak, sorry, ولم يحكم. So it could be either this or that. So if you imagined something in your mind, like the meaning or had the meaning came to you, but without establishing any relation with it, any affirming or denying, in this case, this idrak, this type of realization is called, in the istilah, in terminology, in our terminology, tasawwur. What that's what called tasawwur, imagining. Like, again, it's terminology, and I'm trying to translate as I can, but no one take this meaning like the normal translated meaning in the dictionary, okay? Because it's called tasawwur, because tasawwur in the word in Arabic means imagining, and if something that you imagined in your mind, basically you collected its meaning and its image in your mind. Now you did that process of imagining it or understanding it or recalling it in your mind or knowing it. So if that, and therefore you realized that thing, if your realization came without you affirming or establishing a relation to something else, then this is called tasawwur. For example, as our realization كإدراكنا مثلا that the meaning of حدوث emergence. What is the meaning of حدوث? الوجود بعد العدم. Something existed after it wasn't. It was not in existence and then existed. This is the meaning of حدوث. So now you have that meaning in your mind. You understand it. That is تصورا. That is basically the تصور. We haven't said anything about it yet. But once we say, right, العالم حادث, the universe is emergent. Now this is not a تصور. Now when you say that and when you affirm, when you establish that relation, that's basically what we call تصديق. Okay? We could also call it حكما. Okay? كإثباتنا الحدوث مثلا بعد تصورنا لمعناه. So when you affirm ده حدوث, when you establish a relation between and basically believe in it and like affirm it, that meaning that you imagined and collected in your mind and establish that relation with something else, basically that's what we call تصديق. So for example, we say العوالم, universes or the universe حادث, حادثة or حوادث, يعني حادثة because it's referring to plural here. أو نفيناه عمن وجب قدمه. So say for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not emergent. So basically we denied the emergence from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So basically that's called تصديق now. So تصديق, think about it as ratification, belief or attestation, having like that attestation in your heart about the sentence or the statement that you are making, which has relation, as we explained. It's also called حكم like verdict or judgment, as we said. Okay, both basically means the same thing or refer to the same thing, which is the other type of realization that is not تصور. So basically realization could be تصور or تصديق. تصور is merely collecting the meaning of something in your mind. تصديق, making a testament to that to that thing in a relationship with others. Okay. So and therefore إثبات أمر لأمر أو نفيه عنه هو المسمى حكما وبالله تعالى التوفيق. So affirming something or negating it or denying it is called حكم. And then he say وينقسم إلى ثلاثة أقسام. شرعي, again this between brackets is added by المحقق, as we said, it's just for you to like title so that you can follow the book better basically and like to enhance the readability of the book. Okay. وينقسم إلى ثلاثة أقسام شرعي وعادي وعقلي, as we talked about before. So there are three types or divisions of what are we talking about? What is that thing that is divided to شرعي وعادي وعقلي? Just to see if anybody is actually following me or. Okay, only one answered and answered correctly. Yes, it is the ahkam. Okay, so we are talking about حكم. So the حكم, as we said, what is حكم? إثبات أمر أو نفي. In order for you to understand what does إثبات أمر أو نفيه means, he had to explain to you that first of all, how do you realize something? What is realization? What is the types of realization? And then, or realizing something, acquiring knowledge, you acquire that realization or do that thing or say statement or whatever. It could be either تصور or تصديق. And you still explain that. And he told you that تصديق is basically حكم. And therefore, the حكم is so and so. And then that حكم is divided to three types or three divisions. شرعي, عادي, شرعي عادي عقلي. شرعي means from شرع عادي like customarily or like a normality, وعقلي intellectual and so on as we talked about before, right? يعني أن الحكم الذي هو إثبات أمر أو نفيه يتنوع إلى 3 أقسام بمعنى أنواع. So there are 3 divisions or types. You could call them divisions or types. وهي الثلاثة المذكورة. The 3 that we mentioned. لأن الثبوت أو النفي اللذين في الحكم, because affirming something or negating or denying it could either be, if you are making a حكم. Now let's say the حكم, let's just for ease now translate it or say حكم means verdict. So if you are making a verdict, so that verdict could depend on the Sharia or the Shar, so that verdict of something or a statement that you make a verdict based on, the source of that is from Sharia. You don't know it from other way, and that's why, and in this case it's called Shari. If not, then if it is not, the source for it is not Sharia, then you do that whether by aql, so your mind will make that verdict satisfied without or not relying or not doesn't need to go through experiment testing and experiment and repetition. So basically not relying on the senses, and therefore it's aqli. If it requires, in order for you to make that verdict, requires you to see something repeatedly to make that connection, or to experience something, or to test it or whatever, then this is not aqli, which is basically normal. So basically he explaining you how those division came about. فالأول الشرعي كقولنا في الإثبات. If we are affirming something, we say الصلوات الخمس واجبة. And the word واجبة here, because again it's madhab maliki, not Hanafi, right? So واجبة mean fard in madhab al-Hanafi. So other madhabs, wajib, fard are the same. For madhab Hanafi, there is a division or difference between fard and wajib, as we I think talked about before. So the statement here is as-salawat al-khams wajiba. We know what salawat means. You have tasawwur about it. Khams, you know what khams means. Wajiba in its own, you know that. You understand also, you have tasawwur about the relation of all of them. When you attest to that relation, you are making the ithbat and affirming, attesting an affirmation that is established between all those separate elements of the statement. Now you do the hukm. This hukm is based on what? How did you know that? What is the source of that hukm that you did? The source is Sharia. Then it's called Shara. And it's ithbat, not nafi, not negating. Now, you could say the same for denying or negating something. You attest to an established relation between a lot of elements in a statement, and basically denying that there is a relation between them. Denying the relation is negative relation, is negating, you negating the relation, right? Like for example saying صوم يوم عاشوراء ليس بواجب. Fasting Ashura, the day of Ashura, is not fard, is not wajib, not mandatory. Again, that is correct. I mean, it doesn't mean like whether it is correct or not, something else. Whether it is true or not is something else for now. But of course, it's true. But it's all what we are talking about now, or it's important for us now to know is it's a hukm, and the source of which is Shari, and it is negating, nafi. Okay? So that's the first type. The second type, al-aqli, intellect. كقولنا في الإثبات, and you'll notice that he changed the order. First started شرعي عادي عقلي, because the عادي here in that sense are more related to the شرعي than the عقلي. So basically he got it from that, like gradually reaching the عقلي. But when he explained it here, he divided into either the source, by the source. You know it by shar'i or you know it by not, and then basically the aqli came in between. So that's why he now changed it in explanation and brought forward the aqli first. Anyway, كقولنا في الإثبات, if you are affirming a relation, العشرة زوج, number 10 is even number. Right? That's something intellectual, it's logical. Okay, you reach that by your mind directly. It's not nothing, you know. And it's a statement you establish, you do attest to that relation through intellect and logic. Therefore, it's aqli and it's bad. And if you say in negating, السبعة ليست بزوج. Similarly, if you say, for example, 7, number 7 is not even number. Correct. You are negating the being even, the status of being even from the number 7. And you affirming, you establish that relation and you attest to it. Okay. وقولنا في النفي أيضا الضدان لا يجتمعان. Two opposite things cannot be combined. Again, we talked about that in more detail before, so I think it's clear. Number 3 is al-adi. The hukm that is a matter of normality or customarily. And we mean by that قولنا في الإثبات when we are doing affirmation of something, شراب السكنجبين مسكن. السكنجبين like was a drug or like a medicine that used to use before for صفراء is hepatitis. Okay, so basically this is a statement. You know what شراب السكنجبين mean. You know what is this. Okay, or now you know. Before that you didn't know. And this is an important example. When I say شراب السكنجبين مسكن للصفراء, you don't know what is صفراء, you don't know what is شراب السكنجبين, then you cannot actually do تصديق. You cannot do حكم because you don't have تصور to start with. You have to do تصور and then move on to تصديق, to the حكم. And that's why you may hear a lot of scholars and a lot of people who say الحكم على شيء, and scholars will say in their books a lot, الحكم على شيء فرع عن تصوره. حكم, making حكم and verdict or تصديق for something is a secondary to imagining it first. تصوره. Okay, to know what you are talking about first. You don't do حكم for something that you don't know about. Right? Although some people will do that, that's basically ignorance. Right? It's not علم. Anyway. So basically when you say this statement here and you affirm, basically go through all the process I talked about briefly just now, and the source of that, how do you know that, and what is the source of that? It is not Sharia doesn't tell you that, and it is not aql. You don't reach that by mind. You need, in order to reach that, you need experience, and you need tests, and you need like repetition of you saw so many people drink that thing and medicine, and most of the time or usually they get cured or treated. Therefore you establish that relationship. وقولنا في النفي in negating الفطير من الخبز ليس بالسريع الانهضام. الفطير من الخبز, the like bread type of bread, فطير is like too heavy. It's basically a heavy meal. So a heavy meal, or the khubz, which is a heavy meal, is not fast ingested. You cannot, doesn't have like you cannot ingest it fast. Okay, so you know what does fast ingestion mean? You know what al-fatir al-khubz mean, and then you negating that relation between both of them, and then you attest to that negation. That's basically going and hukm, and it is nafi because the relation between this and that is negative, is denying or negative, right? Although here it's called affirming, it's bad because the relation between this and that is affirmation or affirming, not negating. ثم ينقسم هذا العادي. Now we are going to divide the customarily حكم into two types. عادي قولي, like a verbal or oral, and we mean by that when we say, for example, الفاعل مرفوع, رفع الفاعل. This is in grammar. When I say الحمد, الفاعل, we'll talk about فاعل. when I say, for example, كتب أحمد الدرس. كتب means wrote. أحمد is Ahmed, the subject who made or who did the action of writing. الدرس, the lesson, which is the object. So in Arabic, we say رفع الفاعل. What does رفع الفاعل mean? Does it mean like we take رفع meaning elevating or lifting? So does it mean you take Ahmed from the word and basically just put it on top of your head? We don't mean that. It's meaning it means the haraka, the dhamma, the vowel we put at the last letter of the word Ahmad. We say كتب أحمد. So that's basically what we call by إعراب أحمد. Okay. ونصب المفعول, again نصب المفعول meaning الدرس. We said درس, not درس. Okay. ونحو ذلك, the likes of linguistic and نحو and grammatical أحكام. Okay, so that's حكم. What is that type of حكم? When I say there is a حكم called رفع الفاعل. The فاعل, the subject has to be with ضمة. That حكم, when you do that حكم, how did you, like, is that intellectual? No. Does the Quran tell you that رفع الفاعل? No, it doesn't. So basically, how do you know that it's customarily? When you look at the Arabic language and how people talk, they just do it this way. So it's custom by repetition. Okay. And it's قولي. It is a verbal or oral, and that's why it's قولي. فعلي, which is non-oral, non-verbal. كالمثالين المذكورين. When we talked about شراب السكنجبين, it's like some honey and some other component in that medicine. So that's basically عملي. قول عادي. عملي, not قولي, not verbal. Okay. All clear so far? Okay, we're about to finish إن شاء الله. وكل واحد من هذه الأقسام الثلاثة, every one of those types, 3 types we talked about, the شرعي, the عادي, the عقلي, or شرعي عقلي عادي, ينقسم إلى قسمين: ضروري, necessary, نظري, which is based on examination, requires examination. فالضروري necessary ما يدرك ثبوته أو يدرك ثبوته أو نفيه بلا تأمل, without contemplating, without thinking. والنظري ما لا يدرك عادة. Sorry, we didn't translate that. فالضروري, the ضروري, which is necessary, something that you realize or is realized, whether realized as affirm or negating, without thinking, without consideration, without contemplating about it. والنظري, which is, as we said, like the one that is depending on thinking, ما لا يدرك إعادة إلا بالتأمل. So basically you require a thinking process to go through it in order to reach it. And these 2 types are in every one of those types. So basically the شرعي, الشريعة, حكم الشريعة, the حكم that is from شريعة, whether it's ثابت or نفي, yes or no, affirm or negating. It could be ضروري, necessary knowledge, شرعي, or necessary حكم شرعي, or it could be نظري, okay, required thinking. والعقلي same, could be ضروري والنظري. العادي same, could be this or that, and we're going to give examples now. So as an example, in the حكم الشرعي الضروري, if we're talking about حكم شرعي and ضروري, what we mean by that? For example, as we say, الصلاة واجبة. Salah, prayers are mandatory, واجب. والزنا محرم, adultery is haram, forbidden. ونحو ذلك. So this is something that is شرعي, because we know that from شرع, and it's necessary. We know that necessarily. We don't need to go. If somebody told you salah واجبة here, you know that. It's basically, everybody knows that if you are Muslim. Okay? And this is important because, when, like, if somebody denied what is necessarily known by Sharia, then he is kafir. But if he denied something that is not necessarily known by Sharia, it is known by Sharia, but through nazar, واستدلال, and looking into a proof, through examination, then you cannot call him kafir. Okay? And as is going to come to in the end of the section, inshallah. Right. And the example of الحكم الشرعي النظري حكمنا بأن اقتضاء الطعام من ثمن الطعام لا يجوز وأن الزعفران ليس بربوي. Okay, ده حكم الفقه بأن اقتضاء الطعام من ثمن الطعام. This is like a مسألة or an issue in الفقه, which is basically is called اقتضاء الطعام من ثمن الطعام. And في المذهب المالكي it's لا يجوز. It's not permissible. The other حكم or the other مسألة and issue is الزعفران, type of like herbs and زعفران ليس بربوي. ليس بربوي, not applicable to riba, in riba. Again in the madhab of Imam Malik. So what is اقتضاء الطعام من ثمن الطعام? Just let's explain it briefly. Suppose somebody went to somebody and purchased food, طعام. Let's say قمح, what's the قمح? Grains, for example, type of grains, قمح. I think wheat, yeah, and purchased wheat. And he didn't pay all of the price or any of the price, just took it. And he said, okay, I'm going to pay you later on. And then the seller went to the buyer and said, okay, give me my money now. I want my money. He said, no, I don't have money, but I can give you part of your purchase or part of your of what you want, like what you use, wheat, which he bought from him, right? This is basically this surah, this situation is not permissible, right? He has to pay him from something that is not wheat. Okay. وأن الزعفران ليس بربوي. So again, saffron, you can buy 2 by 1 kilo, for example, and so on. Is not, there is no riba there. Anyway, this أحكام فقهية. How do you know that? Those very fiqh. You know that through nazar, through examination of evidence of ahadith and the Quran and so on, in order for you to reach that conclusion and say, yeah, it's la yajuz, to attest to it. Okay, so this is very, very different than saying the verdict or hukm salah wajibah. Salah wajibah is daruri, necessary knowledge for everybody. Hukm al-shar'i al-nadari, again for Muslims for sure. Hukm al-shar'i al-nadari is not. Now moving into hukm al-aqli, al-daruri, again giving example of daruri and nadari. Daruri, if you say النفي والثبوت لا يجتمعان, something cannot be affirmed and negated at the same time. Okay, something cannot be moving and still or at rest at the same time, as we talked about before. So that's basically hukm aqli, and it's necessary. You don't need to try to imagine it in order to reach it, or you don't need to go through a logical process to understand it. It's clear. Okay, that's necessary. النظري, that's based on examination. When we say, for example, حكمنا بأن الواحدة ربع عشر الأربعين. This will take you a little bit of time to think about ربع عشر, which is 1/4 of 40. 1 is or equals 1/4 of 10th of 40. Now, it's logical, it's intellect, it's عقلي, حكم عقلي, but it will take you a little bit of time to comprehend it. You need to examine, you need to go to equation and say, okay, what is ربع العشر? What is that? Like 40, and then divided by 10, and then divided by quarter, or whatever, or divided by 40, and then, oh, it's 1. That's basically, so you reach that conclusion, but through examination. نظر. Okay. الحكم العادي الضروري حكمنا بأن النار محرقة. It's customarily knowledge and verdict and حكم, and it's necessary. You say نار محرقة, fire burns. It's do you need to put your hand in the fire in order to reach that verdict? No, you know that. How do you know that? Because it's حكم عادي, ضروري, necessary. It's been like over and over again. You saw it, you heard about it from so many people, you experienced it yourself many times. It becomes necessary knowledge. وأن الثوب ساتر. الثوب, clothing, basic covers like this. Yeah, ثوب ساتر. If you know what ثوب and what does it do and wearing ثوب mean, you are gonna be in a state of covering yourself. ونحو ذلك. And the customarily verdict or حكم that is based or dependable upon examination of evidence or thinking process, as what we talked about in the medicine, the sakanjabin and the heavy meal of فطير الخبز and so on. And most of أحكام الطب عارية النظرية. Most of the أحكام الطب, the verdicts or أحكام of the medical أحكام are basically customarily and examinatory or based on examination. All right, and then basically here is the end of this section. وفائدة معرفة الضروري والنظري في الحكم الشرعي. Why do we need to know الضروري والنظري في الحكم الشرعي, as we talked before? Because معرفة ما يوجب إنكاره الكفر وما لا يوجب. Because we need to know what the knowledge of or being ignorant of leads to being of state of kufr. Because if someone أنكر ما علم من الدين بالضرورة, like denied what is necessary, known by Sharia, he is kafir. So if somebody said Salat al-Dhuhr is not wajib, it's not fard wala wajib, no, it's not mandatory, well, that's kafir right away. Why? Because he denied something that's necessary knowledge. Now, be careful that the necessary knowledge changed from age to age, from knowledge to place to place, from level of like learning or education to others, and from even from era to era and century to century and so on. All right, so this is basically the necessary knowledge. If somebody denied, for example, that prayer is mandatory, بخلاف, as opposed to somebody who denied something hidden or delicate or not a lot of people know. In that case, he is not kafir. عند كثير من المحققين وبالله التوفيق. Right, so this is basically important. And عند كثير من المحققين, محققين scholars, محققين of scholars. محقق means like examiner, inspector, interrogator. Okay, so those scholars who investigate and go deep into their things and combine evidence and so on, those what we call al-muhaqqiqin. So those not just, because some scholars may just copy and paste or take things for granted at face value and explain it and so on without really do that kind of critical thinking about it. But there are other scholars who go through the detailed critical thinking of everything that they talk about, and this is what we call muhaqqiqin. So anyway, those muhaqqiqin will say, of scholars will tell you that anyone who denied something that is معلوم من الدين بالضرورة, necessary knowledge of Sharia or الدين, then he's kafir. If he denies something that is not, then he is not. And as we said, this changes from for a lot of, like, I have a lot of factors, and it differs from place to another, from a level of education to another, from age to another, from century to another, and so on. What we know now, or we think now, is or what was necessary knowledge 300-400 years ago is not necessarily a necessary knowledge now. All right, for a lot of people. So now you can find a lot of people saying, "Oh, covering the hair of the woman is not fard." You cannot say they are kafir. You maybe 600-700 years ago you could, because it was necessary knowledge back then. Now it's not necessary knowledge. Now people are just become ignorant. So as the ignorance increase, the necessary knowledge decrease, and therefore you have to be mindful of that. So if you read in an old, or like a textbook, an old book before, saying, "Oh, whoever denied so and so is kafir," don't apply it blindly on our time now, because most of the time, or in many cases, you cannot make that verdict now, because the situation and circumstances changed. All right, so with that we end here. Inshallah, we talk about الحكم الشرعي next time. So is there any questions? Okay, that's a good question. If a person denies the nadari hukm, which is a nadari hukm or necessary hukm. I think you mean necessary hukm. The daruri, not nadari. Nadari is the thing that is based on examination, required examination. So if a person denies or do you mean, okay, let's answer both sides. So let's answer your form of question first, and then let's go to what I think you actually asked. So your question as it stands now, if a person denies the nadari hukm, which is dependable upon examination of evidence and contemplation and thinking and so on. But then a scholar tells him about it meaning, no, it is not about it, like he made like a wrong hukm about it. So there is another hukm. Okay, let's say, as we talked about now, like the al-Za'faran or the مسألة the اقتضاء ثمن الطعام, the buying food by food and so on. Let's say he says it is permissible, and the scholar then explained to him, no, it is not permissible because the evidence is so and so. But he's still denying it. Is he considered a kafir? Certainly not, because it's a hukm nadari to start with. Hukm nadari based on examination of evidence is not necessary knowledge, and therefore there could be, or most likely will be, other opinions. Like the thing, as we said when we were talking about, we said this on the madhab of Maliki. So that hukm nadari could be on madhab Maliki. The hukm could be a different hukm nadari for other madhabs. So denying al-mukhtalaf fi, something that have difference in opinion, is not becoming kafir for sure. Okay, I hope this is clear. So, but if it is like something that a lot of people saying, it's most of saying, or all the scholars, most scholars say, no, that is the right way. He could be mubtada', could be deviant, he could be fasiq and so on, but he's not kafir. Okay, that's important. Okay, so hukm al-daruri, for example, let's say by the other way around. If a person denies a hukm daruri, a necessary hukm, and because maybe he thinks it is not daruri. Let's say some people, saying there are only, I don't know, one prayer a day, or prayers are not mandatory. Okay, why is prayer mandatory? I don't think the prayers are mandatory. And now scholar tell him, no, it is mandatory, and he stays denying it. Now, he is going to be kafir not because the scholar told him about it. He's going to be kafir because it is necessary knowledge now. All Muslims believe that. If he is the only one or two or three or a few people who infringe, don't believe that prayer is necessary, and Muslims say, no, it is, and it's basically, that it is a necessary knowledge because the kids, Muslim kids, knows that prayer is mandatory and they have to pray, then that person is kafir right away. Okay. Now I think there is a third side of this, a third scenario. If something that was necessary knowledge 300-400 years ago, okay, like hijab, like not hijab, like covering the hair of the woman hair, for example, and it's if he's denying it now, and the scholars told him, no, it is important, so and so, he's still not kafir. Because what? Because of the ignorance that has been spread nowadays. It is not. It didn't become a necessary knowledge. It was necessary knowledge, but now it's not. So the level of ignorance increased. Okay, in that case, he will be fasiq, but he will not be kafir. He's denying something now that the scholars explained to him, but he still doesn't see it fard and mandatory, not because he's denying the Islam. He's just that knowledge reduced in the ummah, and a lot of people became ignorant about it, and therefore the hukm has been decreased from that to just from kufr to fisq. Okay, is this clear? And again, as you said, it depends on the place that person is in. For example, if he is in a Muslim majority country, then yeah, it's closer to being kept for sure. But if somebody is like being grown up or raised or living in a Western country, for example, that kind of knowledge is not known there. So every person, it's like a case by case basis, and that's why it's not for you and me and just single people to make verdict of kufr on any other person, right? We in general we say, right, who deny this does that, but we don't know how that person thinks about those things. Those kind of ahkams is basically we delegate that to al-mufti of the country. It has to be somebody at that level in order al-mahkama, right? So if for example it happens every now and again in Egypt and other countries, some like learned people who's actually ignorant in religion, but he might be like a philosopher or like a doctor in some way or whatever, but or a katib and like a writer, okay, a journalist. He may say something that is against Sharia. He doesn't know, and then the authorized organization in the country will raise that issue to the judge, to the court, and it will be looked at, and it will be like a case looked at, and so on. And then the court will judge whether that's a kufr or not. So basically, that's not for us to. And even if he's kafir, so what do? Do you go and kill him? Certainly not. That's craziness, right? Anyway, anything else? Okay, so وإياكم جزاكم الله خيرا جميعا. All right, so we'll stop here inshallah, and we'll see you next week. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك استغفرك اللهم من كل ذنب وأتوب إليك، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم.